So there's a case coming up before the Supreme Court very soon, which rather unusually the President, Lord Reid, trailed in the Times. And I think you're involved in this case, Karon. It's extremely interesting. It's an appeal from the Scottish courts, and it's brought by an organisation called For Women Scotland, which is a women's sex-based rights promotion group or defence group. And the question is whether to improve the gender balance of women on public bodies in accordance with the Equality Act, the term women should include trans men with gender recognition certificates. The Scottish court said that it should, and For Women Scotland have brought this appeal so that, as Lord Reid put it rather starkly in the Times, or perhaps I should say more fairly to him, as the headline writer put it in the Times, the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom is about to decide what a woman is.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be an absolutely fascinating case, which is going to answer a lot of questions that people have been asking. But you're in the case, Karon.
I am. And can I just say, Ken, sorry to correct you. You said, what's the position of a trans man?
Oh, sorry, I meant trans woman.
With trans woman.
Sorry, I meant trans woman, yeah.
I have to say that, it's I won't say anything about that. Yes, it is. It's incredibly interesting. So the question is, if a man, let's say, for example, a heterosexual natal male, obtains a gender recognition certificate recording their sex as female, do they become female? Are they deemed female for the purposes here of the Equality Act?
Yeah.
But presumably, therefore, other legislation that's concerned with matters relating to sex, and there are many. So yes, I represent some lesbian groups, lesbian interveners, as they've collectively described themselves.
Can I just, so that everyone understands the context of this appeal, it arises out of guidance that was issued by the Scottish ministers in relation to this question of public boards. And the context is this: the guidance says there's no definition of woman set out in the relevant act. Therefore, woman in the act has the meaning under Section 11 and Section 212 of the Equality Act 2010. And the guidance says, in addition to the meaning of woman in the Equality Act, in terms of Section 9.1 of the Gender Recognition Act 2004, where a full gender recognition certificate has been issued to a person that their acquired gender is female, the person's sex is that of a woman. And where a full gender recognition certificate has been issued to a person that their acquired gender is male, the person's sex becomes that of a man. In the case that your intervention, you say a couple of things which I'd just like to read out. So paragraph 9 of your intervention for, I think they're called the lesbian interveners. It barely needs stating that lesbians are females who are sexually orientated to the bodies of other females. Again, it barely needs stating that there are anatomical differences between males and females. The defining characteristic of a lesbian is that she's not sexually attracted to male bodies, including penises, testicles, male body mass and shape, nor is she sexually attracted to certificates. And in your final paragraph, you say this case is centrally concerned with the rights of biological women and lesbians. If the Inner House's judgment, that's effectively the Court of Appeal in Scotland, if their judgment and reasoning are correct, the category of same-sex orientation would be eliminated. This is something that would be profoundly homophobic and undermine the efforts made over decades by lesbians and gay men for equality. As such, it would make lesbians invisible, cloaked behind a legal device that treats males as lesbians with an entitlement to occupy lesbian spaces and appropriate lesbian identity. Authentic lesbianism would again become the love that cannot speak its name.
Are you impressed with that, Tim?
Well, it's pretty strong stuff, isn't it?
Strong.
It's really presenting the Supreme Court with a very significant decision, which I presume is going to have implications way beyond Scotland.
Well, it's the foundational question, isn't it? It's the foundational question.
Oh, yeah, no, it'll have implications for the whole of Britain. I mean, Northern Ireland is slightly different. I won't go there because I don't have the provisions in front of me as far as the Equality Act is concerned. But yes, it'll have profound implications. It will affect, as you've said, the meaning of sex across the Equality Act. It will mean, for example, just to identify the absurdity, leaving aside the lesbian issue, that a heterosexual man who gets a gender recognition certificate will become a lesbian because they'll still be attracted to women. But leaving aside that absurdity, additionally, for example, if a trans man, that is a natal female, a trans man with a gender recognition certificate, identifying his sex as male becomes pregnant, that person will not enjoy pregnancy rights because they will be male in law, and pregnancy rights are only afforded women. So you have these complete absurdities. I mean, it's plain that what the Equality Act is directed at is biological sex, and all the single-sex services make that clear, among other things. But it would apply, I think, certainly the way the court approaches the question and the outcome is likely to affect things like other statutory provisions.
Yeah.
Females committing rape with their penises.
I wanted just to round things off, whether you could read this back to the Core 8 duty. Let's suppose the Supreme Court agrees with the Inner House, agrees with the Scottish courts. That would mean, wouldn't it then, that we would be required by the Bar Standards Board, as part of our obligation to promote EDI, we'd be required in chambers to treat trans women as women, and we'd be required to treat them as having all the sex-based rights of women. Is that right, or am I misreading it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
First of all, so far, the case law around gender critical, for example, views and those taken by trans organisations, and I'm using these collectively, that's all been moderated through the Human Rights Act.
Right.
Okay.
Free speech, freedom of belief. And of course, the rights of those holding beliefs like mine must be respected too. That's an aspect of diversity.
Yeah.
In any context, particularly in a workplace environment, they have to be managed.
When Naomi Cunningham, the well-known feminist lawyer, said, will this EDI agenda protect diversity of thought as well? Your answer is yes, that it would.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So, for example, if chambers tell me I must put my pronoun on the bottom of my emails, I will be responding forcefully.
I'm sure
and I won't say what I'll say on your podcast because you may not want to broadcast it. But
well, on that happy note, so that we can retain our family-friendly rating, I'm not sure we have retained it after your description of the Supreme Court case, but it's been a fascinating conversation, Karon, as ever, and it's been a real pleasure speaking to you. So we'll have to see how this goes. I mean, we're waiting with great interest the Supreme Court case, but also, as you've said, this BSB consultation is just that, a consultation. It's not written in stone, and we'll see what the responses are and where the BSB ends up.
Yeah, and also, Karon, of course, the Supreme Court appeal, like all appeals in the Supreme Court, can be viewed on the Supreme Court website in live time. So anyone who's interested in following the argument, which sounds like it's going to be fascinating, just needs to go to the Supreme Court website, and then you click on the link that takes you to the live hearings. But yes, thank you, Karon. We look forward to having you back perhaps in the future after we have the judgment.
Okay, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Karon.